They walked slowly down the street at about 10 in the evening, talking calmly. They were both about 35, both eminently sober. "But why so early?" said Smith. "Because," said Brayling, "your first night out in years and you go home at 10 o'clock. Nerves, I suppose. What I wonder is how you ever managed it. I've been trying to get you out for 10 years for a quiet drink, and now, on the one night, you insist on turning in early." "Mustn't crowd my luck," said Brayling. "What did you do? Put sleeping powder in your wife's coffee?" "No, that would be unethical." "You'll see, soon enough." They turned a corner. "Honestly, Brayling, I hate to say this, but you have been patient with her. You may not admit it to me, but marriage has been awful for you, hasn't it?" "I wouldn't say that." "It's got around anyway, here and there. How she got you to marry her, that time back in 1979 when you were going to Rio." "Dear Rio, I never did see it after all my plans." "And how she tore her clothes and rumpled her hair, threatened to call the police unless you married her." "She always was nervous, Smith. Understand." "It was more than unfair. You didn't love her. You told her as much, didn't you?" "I recall that I was quite firm on the subject." "But you married her anyhow." "I had my business to think of, as well as my mother and father. A thing like that would have killed them." "And it's been 10 years. "Yes," said Brayling, his gray eyes steady. "But I think perhaps it might change now. I think what I've waited for has come about. Look here." He drew forth a long blue ticket. "Why, it's a ticket for Rio on the Thursday rocket." "Yes, I'm finally going to make it." "But how wonderful! You do deserve it. But won't she object? Cause trouble?" Brayling smiled nervously. "She won't know I'm gone. I'll be back in a month, and no one the wiser, except you." Smith sighed. "I wish I were going with you." "Poor Smith. Your marriage hasn't exactly been roses, has it?" "Not exactly. Married to a woman who overdoes it. I mean, after all, when you've been married 10 years, you don't expect a woman to sit in your lap for 2 hours every evening, call you at work 12 times a day, and talk baby talk. And it seems to me that in the last month she's gotten worse. I wonder if perhaps she isn't just a little simple-minded." "Ah, Smith. Always the conservative. Well, here's my house. Now, would you like to know my secret? How I made it out this evening? Will you really tell?" "Look, up there," said Brayling. They both stared up through the dark air. In the window above them, on the second floor, a shade was raised. A man, about 35 years old, with a touch of gray at either temple, sad gray eyes, and a small thin mustache, looked down at them. "Why, that's you!" cried Smith. "Shh! Not so loud." Brayling waved upward. The man in the window gestured significantly and vanished. "I must be insane," said Smith. "Hold on a moment." They waited. The street door of the apartment opened, and the tall, spare gentleman with the mustache and the grieved eyes came out to meet them. "Hello, Brayling," he said. "Hello, Brayling," said Brayling. They were identical. Smith stared. "Is this your twin brother? I never knew." "No, no," said Brayling quietly. "Bend close. Put your ear to Brayling II's chest." Smith hesitated, and then leaned forward to place his head against the uncomplaining ribs. Tick, 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 tick. "Oh, no! It can't be!" "It is." "Let me listen again." Tick, 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 tick. Smith staggered back and fluttered his eyelids, appalled. He reached out and touched the warm hands and the cheeks of the thing. "Where'd you get him?" "Isn't he excellently fashioned?" "Incredible! Where?" "Give the man your card, Brayling II." Brayling II did a magic trick and produced a white card. "Marionettes Incorporated. Duplicate self or friends. New humanoid plastic 1990 models. Guaranteed against all physical wear. From $7,600 to our $15,000 deluxe model." "No," said Smith. "Yes," said Brayling. Naturally, said Brayling too. How long has this gone on? I've had him for a month. I keep him in the cellar, in a toolbox. My wife never goes downstairs, and I have the only lock and key to that box. Tonight, I said I wished to take a walk to buy a cigar. I went down cellar, took Brayling too out of his box, and sent him back up to sit with my wife, while I came on out to see you, Smith. Wonderful. He even smells like you. Bond Street and Malacrinos. It may be splitting hairs, but I think it highly ethical. After all, what my wife wants most of all is me. This marionette is me to the hairiest detail. I've been home all evening. I shall be home with her for the next month. In the meantime, another gentleman will be in Rio after 10 years of waiting. When I return from Rio, Brayling too here will go back in his box. Smith thought that over a minute or two. Will he walk around without sustenance for a month? He finally asked. For 6 months if necessary. And he's built to do everything. Eat, sleep, perspire, everything. Natural as natural is. You'll take good care of my wife, won't you, Brayling too? Your wife is rather nice, said Brayling too. I've grown rather fond of her. Smith was beginning to tremble. How long has Marionettes Incorporated been in business? Secretly for 2 years. Could I mean, is there a possibility? Smith took his friend's elbow earnestly. Can you tell me where I can get one? A robot? A marionette for myself? You will give me the address, won't you? Here you are. Smith took the card and turned it round and round. Thank you, he said. You don't know what this means. Just a little respite. A night or so, once a month even. My wife loved me so much, she can't bear to have me gone an hour. I love her dearly, you know, but remember the old poem. Love will fly if held too lightly. Love will die if held too tightly. I just wanted to relax her grip a little bit. You're lucky, at least, that your wife loves you. Hate's my problem. Not so easy. Oh, Nettie loves me madly. It'll be my task to make her love me comfortably. Good luck to you, Smith. Do drop around while I'm in Rio. It will seem strange if you suddenly stop calling by to my wife. You're to treat Brayling too here, just like me. Right. Goodbye. And thank you. Smith went smiling down the street. Brayling and Brayling too turned and walked into the apartment hall. On the crosstown bus, Smith whistled softly, turning the white card in his hands. Clients must be pledged to secrecy, for while an act is pending in Congress to legalize Marionettes Incorporated, it is still a felony, if caught, to use one. Well, said Smith, clients must have a mold made of their body and a color index check of their eyes, lips, hair, skin, etc. Clients must expect to wait for 2 months until their model is finished. Not so long, thought Smith. 2 months from now, my ribs will have a chance to mend from the crushing they've taken. 2 months from now, my hand will heal from being so constantly held. 2 months from now, my bruised underlip will begin to reshape itself. I don't mean to sound ungrateful. He flipped the card over. Marionettes Incorporated is 2 years old and has a fine record of satisfied customers behind it. Our motto is, no strings attached. Address, 43 South Wesley Drive. The bus pulled to a stop. He alighted, and while humming up the stairs, he thought, Nettie and I have $15,000 in our joint bank account. I'll just slip $8,000 out as a business venture, you might say. The marionette will probably pay back my money with interest in many ways. Nettie needn't know. He unlocked the door, and in a minute was in the bedroom. There lay Nettie, pale, huge, and piously asleep. Dear Nettie. He was almost overwhelmed with remorse at her innocent face there in the semi-darkness. If you were awake, you'd smother me with kisses and coo in my ear. Really, you make me feel like a criminal. You've been such a good, loving wife. Sometimes it's impossible for me to believe you married me instead of that Bud Chapman you once liked. It seems that in the last month you've loved me more wildly than ever before. Tears came to his eyes. Suddenly he wished to kiss her, confess his love, tear up the card, forget the whole business. But as he moved to do this, his hand ached, and his ribs cracked and groaned. He stopped, with a pained look in his eyes, and turned away. He moved out into the hall and through the dark rooms. Humming, he opened the kidney desk in the library and filched the bank book. "Just take $8,000 is all," he said. "No more than that." He stopped. Wait a minute. He rechecked the bank book frantically. "Hold on here," he cried. $10,000 is missing." He leaped up. "There's only 5,000 left. What's she done? What's Nettie done with it? More hats, more clothes, more perfume? Or, wait, I know. She bought that little house on the Hudson she's been talking about for months, without so much as a by your leave." He stormed into the bedroom, righteous and indignant. What did she mean, taking their money like this? He bent over her. "Nettie," he shouted. "Nettie, wake up!" She did not stir. "What have you done with my money?" he bellowed. She stirred fitfully. The light from the street flushed over her beautiful cheeks. There was something about her. His heart throbbed violently. His tongue dried. He shivered. His knees suddenly turned to water. He collapsed. "Nettie! Nettie!" he cried. "What have you done with my money?" And then, the horrid thought. And then the terror and the loneliness engulfed him. And then the fever and disillusionment. For without desiring to do so, he bent forward and yet forward again until his fevered ear was resting firmly and irrevocably upon her round pink bosom. "Nettie!" he cried. Tick-tick, 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 tick-tick. As Smith walked away down the avenue in the night, Brayling and Brayling II turned in at the door to the apartment. "I'm glad he'll be happy too," said Brayling. "Yes," said Brayling II, abstractedly. "Well, it's the cellar box for you, B2. Brayling guided the other creature's elbow down the stairs to the cellar. "That's what I want to talk to you about," said Brayling II, as they reached the concrete floor and walked across it. "The cellar. I don't like it. I don't like that toolbox. I'll try and fix up something more comfortable. Marionettes are made to move, not lie still. How would you like to lie in a box most of the time? Well, you wouldn't like it at all. I keep running. There's no way to shut me off. I'm perfectly alive, and I have feelings. It'll only be a few days now. I'll be off to Rio, and you won't have to stay in the box. You can live upstairs." Brayling II gestured irritably. "And when you come back from having a good time, back in the box I go." Brayling said, "They didn't tell me at the marionette shop that I'd get a difficult specimen." "There's a lot you don't know about us," said Brayling II. "We're pretty new, and we're sensitive. I hate the idea of you going off and laughing and lying in the sun in Rio while we're stuck here in the cold." "But I've wanted that trip all my life," said Brayling quietly. He squinted his eyes and could see the sea and the mountains and the yellow sand. The sound of the waves was good to his inward mind. The sun was fine on his bared shoulders. The wine was most excellent. "I'll never get to go to Rio," said the other man. "Have you thought of that?" "No, And another thing. Your wife." "What about her?" asked Brayling, beginning to edge toward the door. "I've grown quite fond of her." "I'm glad you're enjoying your employment." Brayling licked his lips nervously. "I'm afraid you don't understand. I think I'm in love with her." Brayling took another step and froze. "You're what?" "And I've been thinking," said Brayling II, "how nice it is in Rio, and how I'll never get there. And I've thought about your wife, and I think we could be very happy." That's nice." Brayling strolled as casually as he could to the cellar door. "You won't mind waiting a moment, will you? I have to make a phone call." "To whom?" Brayling II frowned. "No one important." "To Marionettes Incorporated? To tell them to come get me?" No, nothing like that." He tried to rush out the door. A metal firm grip seized his wrists. "Don't run. Take your hands off." "No." "Did my wife put you up to this?" "No." "Did she guess? Did she talk to you? Does she know? Is that it?" he screamed. A hand clapped over his mouth. "You'll never know, will you?" Brayling, too, smiled delicately. "You'll never know." Brayling struggled. "She must have guessed. She must have affected you." Brayling, too, said, "I'm going to put you in the box, lock it, and lose the key. Then I'll buy another Rio ticket for your wife." Now, wait a minute. Hold on, don't be rash. Let's talk this over." "Goodbye, Brayling." Brayling stiffened. "What do you mean?" "Goodbye." 10 minutes later, Mrs. Brayling awoke. She put her hand to her cheek. Someone had just kissed it. She shivered and looked up. "Why, you haven't done that in years," she murmured. "We'll see what we can do about that," someone said.